Welcome to the Red Gauge Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Kyle. This is Josh. Today we're joined by the distinguished Zack Bartell. He's an online coach's coach, founder of SoCal Powerlifting. He has the Beyond Coaching podcast and is one of the partners for Coach Logic, which is a wonderful app that we're using. I highly recommend checking it out. He's competed in powerlifting, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and was a 4-time world medalist in jiu-jitsu. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate that intro. You're too kind.
And one-time world record.
One-time USPA world record bench press in the sub-teen 3 category. Yeah.
Is that what it was? Sub-teen 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's like teen 3. You know how it is with powerlifting. Like, there's so many subdivisions. So I was like teen 3, 18 to 19. I benched 170 kilos at 90 kilo body weight. And that was my claim to fame. I thought I was really cool.
Uh-huh.
And I thought my dad would love me after that, but unfortunately not.
And now I know why you and Max have become friends.
Same humor.
Yeah. So that is a funny thing, right? Because if you're new to strength sports, you're going to discover that there's like 9,000 powerlifting federations, and they all have their own rules, and there's equipped and unequipped and every other thing under the planet, and then a bunch of different categories, right? Because it's obviously not fair to have 12-year-olds competing against 35-year-olds, and so there's room for people to exist, though, so that's nice.
Yeah, I think with powerlifting too, when you get into like the single lift stuff, so like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in weightlifting, you can't just compete in the clean and jerk or just the snatch. It's just a weightlifting meet, correct?
Right.
Well, in powerlifting, you could do bench only. You could do deadlift only. You could do push and pull. Well, you can't do squat only. I don't know who made those rules, but I think it's hilarious.
But who the hell is showing up for that? Like,
well, and then the best part is because we run meets at SoCal, and like you'll have someone who they just want more medals, like they just want to win, so they'll go deadlift only, bench only, but also sign up for full powers. And then there's usually no one in their divisions in the single lift anyway, so they'll get like 3 gold medals for an extra $30 a division. That's fine, okay.
Right.
But you see some of that too.
Yeah, we do a fundraiser every year. It's like a deadlift and donut style thing. We steal the name probably illegally, but
I don't know if anybody owns that name.
yeah.
I definitely stole it, but
Anyway.
There was a brand at one point named Deadlift and Donuts, but I don't think they're around anymore.
All right. Anyway, one year we were doing it, and I was like, I got this injury, like I can't really deadlift, and he was like, just do anything. So I did like a push press, and I did a Zerker deadlift from the floor, like where you get your elbows under it when it's on the ground.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good time.
Have you seen that guy on Instagram? Is it Eric Bugenhagen?
Yeah.
He's the guy that does some crazy stuff like that, where it's just like, oh my god, I'm afraid his spine's gonna snap. But dude, I mean, the human body's crazy and can do lots of things. I'm not like a spine dogmatic guy thinking everyone that rounds their spine's gonna snap, but like that guy, I'm like, dang, I'm impressed.
Yeah, there's definitely like in your career in fitness, there's things that like you really believe, and then as you get further along the way, you're like, oh, I was really wrong about that. And being dogmatic about neutral spine was one of mine, because I got hurt real bad when I was young, and so for me it was a super sensitive thing, and it was a real impediment to training. But like now in my 40s, I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing some spine bending, and we're doing it on purpose,
Well, have you ever seen that? There's lots of memes where it's that inverted U curve, where you have like the caveman on the left, you have the Jedi at the top, and the caveman on the right.
Right.
It's exactly that. It's like training that. So that for training is like, you begin and you're like, just lift weights, brother. And then the top, it's like, no, lift suboptimal SBD day once a week, this, that, and the other thing. And then on the right, it's like, just lift weights, brother. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much fidelity, but it does come down to like you just got to be in it to be successful.
For real.
Yeah.
yeah. For us, a lot of times when we talk about programming, we boil down to like, what are you going to keep doing? Like, what do you enjoy enough to continue it over and over? Because lifting weights can get pretty damn boring.
Yeah.
And then just like, oh fuck, I forgot what the second one was. Didn't have my alpha brain.
Just lift weights.
Got off weights.
Got off the alpha brain, man.
Yeah, but that's true. Like lifting weights, I always tell people like barbell sports are very monotonous sports, and you lose sort of the reward sensitivity over time because you start making less and less drastic improvements. And so I don't see a lot of people in this game longer than 2 to 3-ish years. I see a lot of people peel off with their first, kind of maybe some sort of setback or injury. They quit, they move on, which is, again, completely fine. For them, it's their vehicle of fitness for that period of time. But I think if someone wants to be in this long game and you're, listening, you're just starting, whatever it is, it's like, it's going to be harder to add a kilo or 5, 2-year lifts over time, but that's just how it goes. Like I remember when I was in high school, it took me I maxed out my bench press every day and I added 5 pounds a week from 200 to 300 pounds within 12 weeks, 16 weeks of training just consistently. I was just kind of gifted for the bench press, but then it took me 3 years to bench 400 pounds. Right. So, it's just, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. You never know. I've told the story before, but in my first 10 years of training, I only ever got to benching 365 or 375 or something. And then I took a lot of time off because I was having kids and had a real demanding job and everything. And then when I came back, I was like, I'm going to lift smart this time, because I will be the first to admit I trained pretty stupid. I just did the stuff I like doing, right? I was just in there to have fun. And so I did my first real volume block, and at the end of it, I benched 425 or 440 or something. And it was why didn't I do that? I would have given that advice to anybody, but I never did it myself, So there's definitely, it's not linear. There's no smooth climb to wherever you want to be. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
For sure. And I think that, I look back to when I started training, I would train with so much volume. I would just train 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day when I was teenager, high school, all that stuff. And you can handle it. Because you're not strong enough to hurt yourself quite yet, usually.
Right.
And you're young.
You're young. But I remember even Max 8, I used to coach me when I was a juggernaut back in 2015 to, let's say, 2017. And, he was super high volume. I would have squat days where it's 8 sets of 8. Bench days, there was one day this was my choice. I did what I would call an AMSAP, as many sets as possible. So 12 sets of 8, It's just crazy what you can handle. I think a lot of people underestimate what they can handle, but at the same time, from a longevity standpoint and sustainability, you got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes really important that you are managing your recovery well when you do that, right? Because you can't do AMSAP as many every week.
AMSAP, as many sets as possible.
Yeah.
AMSAP.
AMSAP.
My kids might learn what an AMSAP is here.
Oh yeah. Hey, just do it your last week before a deload. That's what I would do. I just do as much as I can.
Yeah. And then you go through your deload and you just feel like you're gonna die the whole time. You get back to the barbell a week later, you still feel gross.
Or when you're young and dumb, you would secretly max out and not tell your coach in your deload too.
But so we have in our weight room, we have a bell. Anytime anybody hits a PR, go up and ring the bell. Everybody cheers, and they'll be just randomly. I'll have a workout on the board, and whatever it is, they're supposed to be doing threes or whatever, and
no singles.
All of a sudden, the kid will just ring the bell. It's like, I got a new PR. What you're doing triples today? What the hell is going on? They're like, we maxed out. It's like, okay. Yeah. Can we follow the fucking workout, please?
Yeah, coaching kids is hard. As one of them who started powerlifting pretty young, I would just max out all the time. And I would always have good coaches that would try to explain to me the why, but I knew everything. So why would I listen to them?
Yeah, they're one of the most dangerous things as a kid that is getting strong.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's I know more than you. I'm stronger than you. Shut up. You know what I mean? It's well, that's not necessarily how it works, but you're doing good, buddy.
Yeah. It would be nice if strength was a proxy for knowledge of the sport,
Imagine that.
Does that mean am I going to get stronger or dumber? Because I'm not all that strong. So that doesn't work for me.
Maybe it wouldn't
very
be good
well.
for you.
Yeah.
It's also, and that's what I always tell people too, it's funny. So I was always the strongest in the bench press. My deadlift was decent, and my squats were always I had to really work on it. But what that made me really good at when coaching was I was really good at coaching the squat. Because I had to work really, really hard on the craft to get it better. And so when, obviously with social media and stuff, a lot of popularity goes to the strongest people who then sell their coaching. And I don't believe, and I'm sure you guys are in agreement, that the strongest people don't always make the best coaches because maybe things came a little bit more naturally to them and they were more gifted, things like that. So, strength obviously does not correlate to the best. However, from a marketing standpoint, it's pretty enticing.
It's a good place to start off, for sure. But there's plenty. I mean, I won't say names, but there's a guy we bring up quite often that's very strong, man, and he says some of the stupidest shit.
Oh yeah.
How are you around? Like, how did you even get successful? I don't get what's going on. So,
Yeah, I mean, most of the really phenomenally strong people I've ever met knew quite a bit, because I think, if you want to keep getting stronger, you got to keep solving problems. Now, you could have a coach who does that, or you could just be super, super gifted. I mean, what was,
I would almost say like phenomenally strong and made it to like into their 30s.
yeah,
Because there's
Yes.
plenty that get to like junior,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
22, 23, and they just are riding like that.
Yep.
But the guys that then, when that plateaued and then they lift for 7 more years, they probably learned a lot of shit.
yeah. Don't get a big head about your progress in your teens and early 20s, man.
No, for sure. I mean, I remember I had an athlete, she was super gifted. I started coaching her when she was like 15, 16. And she ended up squatting, over 400 pounds, drug tested natural, at like 18 years old. And I thought like, this is going to be the next, Danielle Mello, whatever it is. And, she had her first sort of setback. Actually, first she left me as her coach because I wasn't Instagram famous enough. But, and then she had her first setback, with like an SI issue and then quit powerlifting. It's so, I've seen so many young teens, juniors, talented folks come in and they come and go because it happens. This is an athletic endeavor, and when you're good and strong, it is more likely that injury can happen if you're pushing and training hard. So it's the ones that stay in the sport the longest usually win out. But they definitely, you can peak too early in your career, and then unfortunately there's drawbacks to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm always like, it always hurts my feelings when I see people get out of the sport because of an injury. Like, not, I mean, because anybody, that's part of it's part of the game. Any sport, there's going to be injuries, and they can teach you a lot. Like, they don't have to be viewed as like some horrific thing. They suck, like it's really, really hard to come back and get into training again and try to be productive and everything, but they can be good for you.
Oh, 100%. I mean, so like when I was, playing football, wrestling, I used to sublux my kneecap. I had like shallow grooves. I had like really bad knee genetics. I think this is why my squat was so bad. But I used to sublux my kneecap. It's kind of like a semi-dislocation where it goes back and in. And so then by 18, my left knee was already super arthritic. The doc literally said it looks like a 70-year-old's person knee. And so I was able to, my best squat ever was like 550, so 250 kilos. But that would be like Advil, icy hot, like a big long process to get there. And then I got to the point where there was just shooting nerve pain, down the leg. And so then had surgery and was never able to squat really again. I would try to come back, but then other things would start flaring up. And that's how I had to give it up pretty early on as well. I'm one of those people that, had a kind of a good flashy early sort of strength career and then peeled off.
Yeah. Yeah. But still lifting.
Oh yeah, of course. It's part. I can never stop. It's
I'm
just
a lot
part
more
of the day.
concerned that people keep lifting than that they stop competing. Like just keep lifting, whatever you do.
That takes determination. Yeah.
Yeah. You see it sometimes where it's just the big injury and it's just like a mental thing, like a gun shy. They just can't push themselves.
Or it's not fun anymore. You're not getting the instant gratification of getting stronger. And so if you're extrinsically motivated, and if that's your motivator and you lose that, you lose the shiny object, which is getting stronger, hitting PRs constantly, all that stuff, then you don't move forward. But it's the people who are intrinsically motivated, right? That stay the course, and you see them in it forever. It's like, I can't imagine a life where I don't lift weights. I only lift like 3 days a week, and like, I lift like 60% of the weights I used to lift, but for me, it's still enjoyable because it's more than just lifting weights for me. It's taking care of myself. It's feeling good and all those other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed, like, I'm very much motivated by the success in the weight room and stuff. And I've had a bunch of injuries, and I noticed when I tore my bicep tendon like 2 years ago, and I didn't need surgery, thankfully, but it was almost a complete rupture. I had a piece of dental floss holding my bicep together, and I noticed like as soon as I could do curls just with my arm, just an empty arm, I was like, oh yeah, baby, here we go. And then it was like a razor and then an empty shampoo bottle, and it was like I working my way up. And so you can still get those successes. You just have to change your frame of mind on what you're doing. Then it becomes
Yeah.
about the rehab plan and the range of motion and all those kinds of things. Like you really have to just change your focus from worrying about what you're deadlifting and bench pressing to worrying about like how do I improve my capacity.
Yeah, and I've dealt with the same thing in jujitsu. So transitioning, like when I transitioned to jujitsu, I fell in love with it. Originally I was looking for like a hobby or like really something to do like cardio. Like Dr. Mike Israel does it for cardio, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna start doing it. So I started doing that in 2019, and then I started competing. And then in 2021, I tore my patellar tendon in a competition. And then I tore it again 9 months later in another competition. And so that's a quick reframe. Tear 1, I was like, oh, I'm coming back from this. I'm unstoppable. Tear 2, it's like, okay, my body's telling me something, like I need to change the goals around a little bit. I want to be able to, when I have kids one day, run around with them. So I should probably refocus.
Yeah.
My wife, can we quote that? My wife would love to hear me say that.
Yeah. It'll be a quote for the next episode.
Cool. Perfect.
I want to be able to run around with my kids. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, your sport then, how did you get into sport? Like, where'd you start? What was your beginning?
Yeah. So I grew up,
First question, 15 minutes in.
Yeah. Hey, this is good combos. So I grew up the fat kid. I was really overweight my whole life. And so, bullied, all the stuff that comes with being overweight. And then when I was in middle school, I was in 8th grade. I had some friends doing freshman football, and we were bench pressing in one of their garage setups. And I benched out, like, I don't know what I benched. Maybe it was like 185 without training. Benched more than all of them. And it was the first time I got like positive affirmation and feedback from any sort of athletic endeavor, because I was always the slow kid. I played a lot of sports growing up because my mom would put me in them to make me try to lose weight.
Right.
But that was the first time was the weight room, the barbell, that sort of said, hey, maybe there's something here. And so then when I started playing football, I was always the weight room guy. And then when I was 16, I lost 60 pounds. I said, screw this. Like, I'm going to change. I was like 245 pounds at the time. And I cut weight all the way down to like 185. And that's really when I started learning about like powerlifting and getting into those things. So, it started really as just, I just kind of fell into it. And, as humans, we usually gravitate towards the things we're good at. And I was good at it. And so I just kind of stuck with it from there.
Yeah. Losing 60 pounds in a year?
Yeah.
When you're 16? That's pretty intense.
Yeah, not the healthiest way for like the first 20. That was like the football transition into wrestling. So I was like, starve yourself. I got down to like the next weight class down. So I wasn't like, they don't call it ultra heavy. I think just heavyweight. And then I got down to, the one below that, 220. And I was like, cool, we're good. And then after wrestling, I was like, let's just keep this going. Because weight loss is one of those things where once you kind of get momentum, it becomes easy. You break the habits.
Yeah.
And then it was addictive. I would just be like craving, like being lighter on the scale the next day. So there was some unhealthy habits probably that for that first portion, but then I started creating the healthier habits from there and getting into things.
It is a nice counterbalance. It's one of the interesting things about working with food with people, because like if you're addicted to heroin, you can stop hanging out with your friends who do heroin and you can stop going and buying heroin. But with food, like you always need it, right? And so whatever side of unhealthy relationship you end up with food, you just have to figure out some kind of way to fix it. The nice thing about powerlifting and stuff is you want to fill out a weight class. You also want to get down a weight, because there's some balances built in that are external.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I even to this day, like I don't love all you can eat buffets or situations like that, because again, my relationship with food is pretty healthy, but also like I love food, and like I'll easily go overboard, and then it becomes like an economical factor of like I just want to eat as much as I can to get my money's worth, at some of these things. So I abstain from like a lot of that stuff. Or I had a buddy who was into food eating competitions and tried to get me to do one. I'm like, dude, no way. Like that doesn't do it for me at all. I want to stay out of that realm. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up always like fighting with my brothers for food, and so like I remember I took my brother out for a cheeseburger once when we were like in our early 20s, and he ate the cheeseburger in like 2 seconds, like just the whole thing, And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "It's how I like to eat." I was like, "I think we got this wrong, man. I think we're doing this wrong."
No, 100%. And then I had a mom who, like, bless her soul, I mean, she was really conscious about this all. Like, honestly, sent me to like a daytime fat camp when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
not like heavyweight style, but like after school sort of program where they taught you about nutrition labels. Like she was trying to really get on it with me, but it wasn't until I wanted to make the change, you know. And we talked earlier about intrinsic motivation, and I was just intrinsically motivated to make a change, to be a different person. And it changed my life. I mean, I obviously have made a career out of this, but yeah, I always talk to people, you know, to this day of people kind of come up to me, talk to me about these things if they're trying to lose weight, and I'll get locked in an hour-long conversation with someone about it because I think it's a psychological thing more than anything.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, food was comfort. I kind of grew up in a divorced household, had some issues and stuff. And so I would run to food as the comfort, as my drug of sorts, right? And so being more aware of that and sort of some of those triggers definitely changed, you know, everything for me. And I think what became the drug was lifting weights. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, have a replacement behavior. Yeah, replacement behaviors are big. So powerlifting and wrestling. Did you compete collegiately at all, like in wrestling or anything?
No, so I was okay at wrestling at the time. Like you know, it's funny with jujitsu, it's like I'm pretty good at that, but like wrestling, nothing really clicked. And I think one of those things was because I was heavier, I was always tossed at the juniors and seniors when I was like a freshman. So like I created this negative sort of thing where I would leave practice crying so that these older guys would beat up on me.
Right.
And then with football, same thing. Like I was a starter. I was like captain of the football team, you know, because I was the weight room guy and always motivating and stuff. But
Right.
I'm not super tall or anything like that. So I wasn't built to play at the next level. And that's actually how I started competing in powerlifting, was because I was like, well, my sport career is going to end here in high school. Let me find a vehicle for that I can still feel like an athlete. And so I started competing in powerlifting my junior year of high school. My first competition actually was at Metroflex Gym, and CT Fletcher was there. That was a really cool moment. And I competed there, and I just sort of fell in love with it. I loved it so much that after I was done competing, I did a bench workout like in the gym because I was like, wait, I can do more, you know? And so that's how I sort of,
up.
yeah.
Get
It's
the
like,
fuck outta here.
they're trying to get out. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just there on their bench and stuff. But either way, that's for me, powerlifting served as that sort of furthering my athletic career, and keeping me focused and locked into college. And so that's what I did.
Cool. All right. So you mentioned that you started your first gym at 20.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when I was in high school, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with Juggernaut, Chad Wesley Smith,
Yep.
all that stuff. So Chad grew up in similar areas, a little bit older than me. And I got to know him. He was tangent, but we have this guy, his name was Alex Parsons, who played in the NFL. He went to my high school. He's about, let's say, a decade older. He was back, broke his ankle playing for the Raiders, came back to do some strength and conditioning work, and then just also became our offensive line coach for funsies. And I was a lineman. And so I got to know Chad. He was really good friends with Alex. And so Chad sort of, I think, saw something in me. I then started training at Chad's Juggernaut location in Southern Orange County. And then I started working like the front desk, and working for him. And that's kind of when I started coaching. Chad closed the gym in 2017, and I sort of formulated a plan to buy his equipment. He gave me a payment plan with no interest. So it was like zero down, just
Nice.
super kind dude. He's still a friend to this day. And I found a space that would sublease me space on a revenue share. So I went in with like zero overhead, zero risk,
Yeah, that's
and
freaking
just
awesome.
went for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
that can't be super common. Like I'd imagine, obviously we live in a much different location. Like we're a rural,
Yeah.
a rural city up in Washington, Southern California. But like I can't imagine it's super common that somebody's like, oh, sure, 18-year-old,
Yeah.
lease
So
out this space with no, like
I'm interested in the parallels here because so I also in my early 20s started a gym with a friend, and we had I'm trying to think about how to phrase this. There's a friend of ours who owned like a medical center, and she had a building. She owned a building, and the tenants kept turning over. And so she's like, I want to start a business here. And so she found somebody and was like, do you want to run a gym here? I'll pay for the equipment, turn it into a business and everything. I'll foot it. But yeah, it was like $250,000 to start that gym, to buy the
Yeah.
equipment, remodel the space and everything. And then, I was there for 6 years or whatever. So I'm looking forward to hearing your stories about how you grew out of that successfully, because I didn't grow out of mine successfully. So I'm excited about the compare and contrast here. We probably have some good career advice for people.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I look back and like my situation had so much luck. Like I think it's Steve Jobs has a really good commencement speech that I really like, and he always talks about how you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward. And I look back at some of these dots that connected to with me, with Chad and Juggernaut, and like the life I had. And I'm like, wow, a lot of it was luck. You know, some of it was identifying some opportunities and probably just not giving a shit and being like, worst case scenario is I just moved back home with mom and put my gym equipment I bought in her garage. You know, hopefully she would have been down, but it ended up working out. Definitely because I focused on, I think, some factors and hired some mentors and knew who to ask questions to.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting, I started it with a mentor. So our high school weightlifting coach, he started lifting weights in like the late 40s. He's got a great story about when he went to get his first set of plates, he took his dad's Model T and let the air out of the tires
Oh my
and drove
God.
down the train tracks just in idle, to get his plates loaded up, and then came back. And I actually have those plates. I stole them.
Wow.
But
Are they like York plates or something? Like what's the brand? Is it even branded?
Weeder?
Yeah, the deep dish.
Yeah, the deep dish Weeder plates, the super old ones.
That's cool.
They're pretty great. I'm not sure if they're Weeder now that I'm saying it out loud.
I feel like Joe Weider was more later. Like it's Joe Weider, right? I think.
Yeah. Weeder was
but-
later.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I feel
They were
bad.
handcrafted by the Flintstones. Okay, go on.
They were. Yeah.
We do actually have a
Yeah.
we have a set of dumbbells that are like that too.
Yeah. We have a set of handcrafted dumbbells. They're cast
From the same
cast
guy,
iron,
yeah.
77 and
Nice.
79 pounds
They're
or
like,
something.
grips are freaking.
Yeah. Huge.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're great. But he asked me. He was like, "Will you come run this gym with me?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And so we got into it. And the owner, like I said, she had other things going on, and she was like, "Do you want to just run the show?" And I said, "No, I really like things the way they are." And that was a mistake right there. Like when she came to me and said, "Do you just want to run it? I'll pay for you to open other locations, whatever." I should have 100% jumped on that, because I found out that if somebody's looking to give up the wheel, it's because they don't want to drive anymore.
Yeah.
And if there's nobody there, it's just going to careen around, So
Right.
I ended up leaving all disgruntled, and then I was out of it for like 6 weeks and realized like, oh, that was my fault. Like I'm the one who messed that up. If I had taken that opportunity, it would have been a very different experience.
100%.
Yeah. So you said recognizing opportunities. That's an important thing. Somebody gives you the wheel. Take it.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a book. I read a book really early on when I was 20. Is the top 10 distinctions between millionaires and the middle class by Keith Cameron Smith. And when I was reading it, he was talking about risk and assessing risk. And there's three things you look at, and one is what is the worst thing that could happen, what is the best thing that could happen, and what is most likely to happen. And the way he proposed it is, if you can handle the worst thing and move on, do it.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was looking at the frame on this, I was like, okay, worst case scenario is I close this down. I have some garage equipment. I keep online coaching. I go to, continue my degree. And one day I'll be a powerlifting coach or strength and conditioning coach. And that's fine. I'll be happy.
Right.
And so I move forward. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it's stomaching the risk. And as we all know, the younger you are, the less, things sort of, less responsibility you have, if you don't have a family and all these things, or food, to provide to your children that you need, you can do those things. You can just go for it. And I wanted to take those risks to be able to build a base to do what I want to do so that one day I could live the life I want to live.
Yeah. So was there any life lessons that you got out of that first couple of years of running your own show that you feel are super important and worth sharing?
Oh, absolutely. Well, so it's funny you mentioned like partners and stuff not working out. So when I opened, I technically had two partners. One was a shady business guy that I thought was a good business guy.
Nice.
And I was just young and naive. I was bringing some powerlifting clients over that I had built at Juggernaut. So I was bringing, the relationship with Chad, and I actually had some cash as well. I was working like 4 jobs at the time and stuff. But the other guy he's still a good friend of mine to this day. But I realized really early on that shady business guy, who had most of the equity at that point, wasn't putting in the work. And because I was scared of doing it alone because I thought I couldn't, I got in bed with those guys. And luckily, we had a notepad agreement. It wasn't like a post-it note agreement, not an actual agreement. So I was able to buy those guys out really early on and take it over. So I think lesson number one is, trust your gut, I think. Super cliche, but I knew that he wasn't the right fit. I think I just didn't trust myself because I didn't believe maybe that I could do it alone. And I proved myself wrong, pretty early on. And then 2, mentorship. So year 1, I hired a business coach. I was doing about $8,000 a month in revenue. This is now 2018. And I was stuck at like 8K a month in revenue, which, obviously for some that could be great. But I wanted more. And so I hired a business coach for $1,500 a month, a fitness business coach. And luckily I didn't get scammed by some of those like marketing Facebook ad gurus. Like this was like a legit coach, taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And, with her help, I, over the next 3 years, scaled it to 70 grand a month and now, further and beyond. So, getting help, just like in, sports, barbell sports, whatever it is, like hire a coach. I think the same goes for business. I have a bias. I'm a business coach now, but like there's things that we don't know. And so go learn them, hire a coach, learn them. You don't need a business degree. You just need someone that's maybe done it at a higher level than you have, so you can learn from them. And like with that coach in particular, like I graduated from her. I achieved more success than she had achieved in her realm. And so then I hired a business coach that was a $10 million CEO to like learn how to go further, And so that stuff I think is really important. Mentorship and education.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that as something that was so I mentioned that the guy that I worked every day with was our high school coach, Coach U, and he was a great dude, wonderful human being, great coach, but hadn't had experience operating a business like that before, right? And so, like looking back on it, that's actually something I wish that I would have done. Like in addition to not making the personal choices that I did, getting that extra support. Going out. And
Absolutely,
100%. I've always been real reticent to get coaching because I always think I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm just a smug bastard, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. The book 12 Months to a Million, Daniel Moran always talks about that. Like just making sure you understand that like wherever there's a barrier in front of you because you're creating a barrier in front of you. Mm-hmm. It's not in the way he said it is like $1 million seems like a lot of money because you don't have $1 million. Like it's not a lot, and there's no one holding you back from that. You just got to make a business that can get it, right? So like that was our big thing of two guys. Like I said, we come from a rural family. Both of us have similar backgrounds, not necessarily like the most wealthy upbringings. So like getting ourselves out of this like the small time and allowing ourselves to go a little bit more big time. And it's been exciting.
Play in bigger arenas.
Right.
Naval Ravikant, one of my favorite, authors and businessmen, he talks about how like a few really key decisions you make when you're young. One is who you marry, or who you're with. And then another one would be where you live. And so, if you move to a place like New York or San Francisco, Bay Area, like you're probably going to have more opportunities because your network and the people you're going to meet. But if you're, in a small town, it's more likely that, you're around less people. So less opportunity to network with people who maybe you look up to and stuff. And so me being in Southern California, I'm in Orange County, so it's not like crazy. It's not like LA, but at the same time, there's people here that have accomplished quite a lot. And so I've always been able to be at least surrounded by those folks and look for them and try to be in those circles.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much, like a format like this can kind of help level that field a little bit. Like, we get to talk to people we got Australia and Switzerland scheduled, and nice. You can make the world a lot smaller if you're smart about the tools that you're using.
100%. I mean, social media and the internet has obviously changed the game. But for sure, like, there's nothing like being able to get coffee with someone and having that face to face with a notepad, right?
Before we started, we just talked about that. I was talking about I need to buy a different car so we can so we can go take a trip. Like you can see people are all over the place. We got to go like, we're going to drive across the country to go see people. So
yeah, my wife and I bought an RV, so Josh and I have been talking about doing the mobile show for the summer.
Oh yeah.
So,
That'd be awesome.
Damn.
Did you have a good question there and it left you?
Fucking Monroe's brain, dude.
Oh, there you go.
Were you going to ask him what his favorite kind of sea spider is?
No, I was not going to ask that question. It was not the sea spider. It was just expanding, like just the little things, like expanding your horizons. I just started online coaching a couple of months ago, right? So I was sitting there and like breaking it down with my wife, like, okay, like here's like 10 clients, and I was on Google Sheets and like 10 clients, like, okay, maybe like 15, and trying to think of like how many people can you really balance and give them like a good time. Yeah. And then it was either the first or the second one of your and Max's podcast, and I don't remember exactly what the number was, but you were like, I had like 275 clients. Yeah. And I was just like, what the fuck? They went and like did the math on that shit. I was like, yeah, all right, I'm getting coach logic.
Yeah, I mean, well, so and when I said that too, that wasn't my personal roster. That's like I have a team of coaches now. But as a solo coach, I got up to 68 clients like myself. And I think that a lot of people coach as like a hobby. They become a coach because they enjoy it. They're maybe a lifter, they enjoy it, and then they kind of start coaching a friend for free or two, and then they start charging $50 a month, send them programming. That was me, and then you build it up from there. And then but if you think about, like you guys mentioned, you guys have full-time jobs, right? If you took all of that time and you had that time to dedicate to coaching, you would probably be able to coach a lot of people.
Right.
With systems in place to sustain it, right? To give the clients the best experience. But so that was me and my coaches now. Like my coaches on my team, they have 401ks, they have health insurance, they have benefits, they have salaries. Like they just coach. And so I think people get all kind of weird about like high level client rosters, like how big they could be. But at the end of the day, if you have the time, if you're spending your 40-hour work week now on coaching, you can, and if it's online, you can do a lot. You can handle a lot of people. Just got to make sure that you hold yourself accountable and keep yourself accountable to a schedule and calendar and all that stuff to keep it all organized.
Yeah. You can't be dropping people. You're
Exactly.
responsible to them, right? You owe them.
Yeah, and I see that a lot with like the famous coaches, quote unquote, like on social media. A lot of horror stories there with like, oh, so and so didn't mess me back for like 2 weeks or hasn't updated my plan. Yeah, because they're coaching for a money grab. Like they're just trying to monetize their following. But if you have someone like me, like I never had like a lot of followers or anything like that. Like coaching was my vehicle for professional success, but also my job, not just being a social media guy. And so I always treated it with the utmost respect. And again, if from a coach's standpoint, like if you have the time and that's your full-time gig, like there's no reason you can't coach a lot of people and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You must coach fantastic because you need the word of mouth to be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And retention, retention's a huge piece.
A big time guy can survive. Yeah. They could survive getting bad mouthed because
exactly.
Even if you're saying like, oh, they fucking suck, I might still be like, yeah, but I want to get coached by them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna ignore that kind of shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, was your gym is your gym the gym that you started? Have you moved locations? Do you have new places? Like how is that path growing for you?
Yeah, we've expanded twice. So we're in that like sublease situation, like revenue split. And then within like 6 to 8 months, I was making enough money and giving them enough money where it didn't make sense for me to do a revenue split anymore. So I renegotiated to a rent, and then it kept getting momentum. And then we were getting too busy where their landlord was getting pissed about all of our people parking and noise and all this stuff. Like there was a time where actually I couldn't let people deadlift until it was after like 4 p.m. because the landlord, who was like 3 doors down in her office, the walls would vibrate and like, all that shit. And so I found a space very close by that we were able to move into. And then from there, after a year in that space, we blew that space out. So my first space is about 1,600 square foot of warehouse space. Second space is about, I think, 2,600. And then actually June 2020, so this is during COVID, we were able to get a 4,700 square foot space. And that's the space we currently reside in now. And it's been great. At our peak, I'd say 2023, we had over 500 clients. We're at like 400 now. There's ebbs and flows and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, we've definitely expanded and done some things there.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Did you notice like when you guys moved, even if it was only a slight movement, like did you get people that were like, oh, that's like 3 more blocks?
Honestly, so like the second to the third space was in the same commercial park, so everyone was stoked.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll say. Actually, this is a lesson. When you get to a certain size, you start to lose some of that community small feel. And so I didn't realize that, and COVID didn't help. With COVID, we stayed open, so we did really, really well because everyone closed, which gave me this false sense of how cool I was and how smart I was, that I've realized now I was a buffoon. But either way, but then we also lost a lot of that like personal touch.
Right.
It got to the point where I don't know everyone's names and things like that, and those things make a difference. And so I think If I were to do it again, I actually would probably stay in a smaller space and just open another location rather than trying to go more volume play in a singular location, because that community feel is really kind of what people are paying for. And we do our best to keep that, and we run community events and we do a lot of stuff like that. But at the same time, again, when you have that many people, it's just hard to build that sense of community. When it's small, it sort of feeds itself. People just, if they're the only couple people in the gym, like they're going to talk. But when you have a bunch of people in the gym, it seems more intimidating. I mean, people don't connect as much, especially because some of this is a business model flaw of maybe how we operate with. We don't operate with classes. It's like everyone gets their custom programming. They go and train on their own. And so they're not, working out in a class where they're getting to know the person next to them. They're doing their own custom training, which we know is better for progress. But the downside of that is that they're not connecting with their peers as easily. So we have to really push that, unless they're super extroverted, which we have those people who are the connectors,
Right.
but not everyone is innately that way. And so it's just harder to build those connections, which hurts your retention and, increases your churn.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something we've talked before about, how that's something that like a lot of CrossFit gyms did right, where they've got their 6 o'clock workout and their 7 o'clock workout, and you
Yeah.
show up with your group and everybody, and or specialty power gym or weightlifting gym or strongman gym. There's something that you can't really replace in those small settings. It's really nice.
Yeah. And I've seen like there's oh man, what's Mark Repeto's brand again?
I don't know.
Oh, well, it's like the 5x5 guy. So like there's a gym near us that does do a class-based thing, and
Starting
we've had
Strength.
Starting Strength. Yeah. So there's
Yeah,
gyms,
yeah.
there's this gym franchise called Starting Strength. And so
Okay.
we have one nearby, and we'll get clients from them because the clients will outgrow that class. And so I've seen it work in my favor as well, to have that more customized approach, but it just is more, you're kind of training in a silo unless you push yourself out of it. And there's only so much I can do to like facilitate those connections. At the end of the day, someone's going to choose to show up to the community event or they're going to not, And so, but that has been something we've had to really try hard to overcome with more people in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you were a smaller space, like did it have more like, I guess it still might, but were you like more of like a powerlifting gym, or were you kind of always commercial? Like, have you grown in size, but also like we got a bunch of treadmills and
It's funny you say treadmills. We just got our first 2 treadmills in December because like people were asking for them. So, but no, we
like you're just like 25 racks and like
our gym has 10 combos, like
Okay.
5 wall racks, a bunch of some arsenal machines. It stayed very powerlifting-y,
Yeah, that's
and not commercial. But now there's actually more gyms now popping up in the area, and so that's why what did me a solid was, for me, actually Max gave me this advice really early on when I was going to open the gym. He goes, the gym is an expense for the coaching. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, the gym is maybe why people show up. The coaching is why they stay. And so you could maybe have the nicest gym, but if 2 years from now your equipment's starting to get a little worn down and another one pops up, like people will just go there. If cost is the same, if they're not connected to a coach or the people around, they'll just jump to whatever's better.
Right.
But if the coaching is there, and that's what they're looking for, and that's what they value most, then they'll stay, even if your equipment gets a little outdated. And so, we've definitely upgraded things and done our best to do that. But I think one of the reasons we've been successful is because of the coaching, and coaching is what drives 80% of our revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, there's a version of that's good advice, even if you run like a Anytime or a 24-hour fitness or something. Like the relationships, like if your staff knows the people when they come in,
Yeah.
and they like dealing with them, those memberships will be a lot more resilient than if it's a very anonymous environment.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why people up and leave commercial gyms all the time. I know people who have probably been going to the same 24-hour fitness for 10 years, and they know maybe a couple people they see, but you don't see them talking and engaging.
Right.
They'll probably lose their bench. They'll lose their rack if they walk away too long, And so I think fostering that community environment, fostering it potentially with some coaching as well, has always played in our favor for sure.
Yeah, and that environment is a good way to just keep you coming back. Like if you're not the intrinsically motivated person, like there was lots of times where I probably didn't want to lift, but either if it was uptown or downtown, like it's like, oh, but I know my buddies are there, so I'll just go down. Or like when you go to the gym and you're like, it's not even your day to lift, and you just go there and you're like, where the fuck is everybody? Like you text,
Yeah.
are you working out today? Like I'm just sitting at the gym for no fucking reason. I was just coming down to bullshit.
Yeah, well, I've seen this with jiu-jitsu. So I've been training jiu-jitsu for about 5.5 years, and like when you train like a martial art, like jujitsu, where you're sparring with someone every day, like you get really close physically and emotionally, to your partners. Like you build a bond. And so like our, morning crew, when I train at 6:30 a.m., I know who's going to be there. I know who doesn't show up. There's just like an extra layer to it of like brotherhood. Right. And so again, a sport like powerlifting, when you're not really working in with each other and creating that as much, it's you don't have that extra push. It doesn't come as easy, that connection. Right. You have to sort of work for it and put yourself out there. But I've seen jiu-jitsu, I think jiu-jitsu is actually a sport that's growing like crazy right now. Mm-hmm. And I know why. It's because it's, you build those connections and friendships.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever, when you're looking at programming, do you ever like, you think like, oh, maybe this guy could use a little more, this guy could use a little less, but if I put them on the same thing, then they can be buddies and they can train together? Like, do you make those kinds of adjustments with your in-person people?
So we haven't, unless like that's been requested. Like we had a couple clients that their buddies, they referred their friend and wanted to train together. So we would do that. Because our like value prop's always been like hyper customization, daily feedback, hyper customized programs, like all that stuff. So, we try to do that first. If people train next to each other in the rack, that's great, but we've never really been able to facilitate the whole work in with each other aspect. And I think a lot of that is because, I'm sure we can all agree, like when we started training, it was maybe there was a couple racks in the gym and we would use the couple racks. But like when I started SoCal, at least at this location with this expansion, it's like people who start now are used to 10 combo racks, are used to wanting to use their kilo plates. They want their bar, their special bar they like in their certain area. And so we got accustomed to working in with each other, training early on, because there was limited space. But I think like I've kind of set up a pretty privileged situation for my people. And so they're like, oh, I want my own space. And so we don't see that quite as much.
Yeah, so like my kids are used to working like groups of 3 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And like always busy, and you have spotters and loaders and everybody's right there. Like it would be very strange going the opposite way, where the first 2 years you lifted alone and then somebody's like, hey, can I work in? You'd be like,
what
weirdo. The fuck are you talking about? No.
Work into what? You can work your way right out of me.
Yeah.
How would we don't lift the same weight. How the fuck would we ever lift on the same bar? Like the weight doesn't come off.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like I just started in a high school, so that was the way we did it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, our gym only had 5. We had a couple more
racks,
yeah, 5 squat racks, couple of platforms,
Yeah.
deadlifts, cleans and shit. I think we had 7 bench presses.
Yeah,
There you go.
I switched to a home gym because I showed up one night to work out, and there was a group of girls in the big rack, and they got up, they packed all their stuff, and they left. And I was like, "You guys don't have to leave." And they were like, "No, you're serious about it." I was like, "No, I'm just really like, I did a good job picking my parents. Like that's got nothing to do with. We're all here working out at 11 o'clock at night. Like, just do your workout,
Yeah.
And I felt bad about that, so I just bought my own stuff and
That's funny.
work in my shop now.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
You probably get your training done much faster, if you're not yapping.
Much slower.
too.
Much
Yeah.
slower.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, man. I can't be left alone. I have no concept of time. I'll just stare at the wall
10
for
sets of check
minutes.
Instagram.
Yeah. I don't even need a phone. There can be no music. I've worked out in the dark with no music and spent 3 hours up here,
Yeah.
But I really love doing
He's a
it.
special guy.
I'm a special
Yeah. Yeah. Wild.
Okay, so you're in the online coaching space and you're a coach's coach. So like I imagine you have some pretty good advice for, dealing with like the different phases that we all go through when we're living in our when we're going through our training careers. Like we talked earlier about there being ups and downs just in terms of the motivation for the sport, because sometimes the progress doesn't come so easy. Sometimes you're just hurt and there's no progress. Sometimes you're recovering from hurt and you feel like you should be able to train hard, and for whatever reason it just isn't going. So let's do a little coach advice maybe. Does coach advice sound good?
Yeah.
What do you, I guess we can kind of like break it down into pieces. You mentioned earlier that you developed kind of a negative relationship with wrestling when you were a young guy because the older kids were just beating the shit out of you all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not that different from going through a rough 9 months or year in the weight room where you're not feeling a lot of success, right? Like the kind of emotional wear and tear is the same. So, or similar, right? So what's your kind of like standing advice to keep people moving forward when they're, when they're struggling to be motivated to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that number one, it's probably understanding how positive the behaviors are when you stay the course. I think that the best things in life come from staying the course and being patient. Now, how often have we heard about the story? Like, well, I'll relate this to, like, entrepreneurship, where like the story of like the person who was on the fringe of bankruptcy and just did the one thing that all of a sudden that was that thing that then catapulted things forward. I see the same thing with training. Like personally, I was stuck at like the same squat for like a year, and then all of a sudden, bam, like added like 50 kilos in like 3 months because made a couple changes to the program, felt better, whatever it was, lifestyle. So I find that sometimes the longer we plateau, there's going to be a moment, a thing that happens, a change that occurs, a modality shift maybe that unlocks the progress that was made that just was unrealized during that sort of flat period. And so, ultimately people, I feel like psychologically people are who they are. The ones at the top in any realm are the ones that are willing to never quit and just continue to push and move forward. And this applies to, I think, all things. And so that's sort of what I highlight. And I talk about that too with like when I coach business and coach entrepreneurs, like there's hard times, but a lot of times when you weather the storm on the other end is something great, but you'll never know unless you weather it. And the same goes for training and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you are talking to your coaches, like, do you just hire on like, all right, this guy's pretty solid, I'm going to hire him on? Or is there a little bit like, okay, he's solid, I'm going to hire him on, and then you coach him up on like, this is how you coach under my umbrella, give him some tools? Like, so if there was a kid that had been stuck for a while, do you guys have like, hey, try, if this isn't working, if our program isn't working, here's like, try A, B, or C. This is what we transition to next? Or do you let your coaches like play with it a little bit?
Yeah. So when it comes to like hiring coaches, I prefer to have someone with the innate behaviors. I'm looking for qualities, who they are as a person, more than like what they know. I can teach someone to know whatever, but I can't change someone's personality, kind of like what I was saying. And so, and then when it comes to them dealing with a client, issue, one of the things that we've done is, I structure my business really, it's super structured. So we follow actually what's called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so one of those things is there's a weekly, we call it a level 10 meeting with the coaches, where the coaches bring their client highlights. So of their clients who's PR'd, so the other coaches know, and if they see that person in the gym, they can say congrats, bring visibility there. They also bring their client compliance rate. So how many of the clients are completing workouts? The clients who have low compliance, we talk about them. What's going on? Why aren't they training? And then they also bring client drops as well. So if they lost a client, why? What's going on there? And then two, if they have a problem, that's when we solve together. And so we sort of group think these things. And then other coaches in the meeting can say, hey, I've tried this. This is what's worked for me with this person. And that coach then can take that and sort of run with it. But we try to give them as much support as possible in that group setting, and as well as the education in the beginning so that they know sort of the different things to try and do when we hit some stagnation points.
Does that meeting ever get testy? I've never been in like a super like that sounds dynamic as fuck, to tell you the honest truth. Like, so I don't ever get to pick my coaches.
He's just stuck with
people,
me.
right? Yeah. Coach people, and sometimes you'll either give a suggestion that they don't want to hear, or I'll get a suggestion that is absolute nonsense. So like, does that ever happen, or have you made a pretty
our team's pretty high level of emotional intelligence. I'm proud to say that, but I'll also say that I think conflict is good. I had my team read Radical Candor. It's a book about, in a working environment, you're doing your team members a disservice by not being straightforward with them, and if you're beating around the bush, you're letting your team down. And so we've gotten really good at giving each other constructive feedback. They give me constructive feedback on where I'm dropping the ball. I've gotten good at receiving that as well, and that can be hard when you're the owner. So I think conflict is good. I haven't seen it get overly testy. What I think will happen in those situations typically is someone might be like, okay, thanks for that. And then maybe they just don't run with the advice given.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking of like Ben Stiller with Globo Gym and fucking dodgeball.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard, when you run your business, it's like, you've obviously, like with me, like I've had success. There's feelings of, just do it my way. It should be done this way. But we've also realized this with coaching. If you tell an athlete, like, do it this way, a lot of times the athlete wants to know the why. And you need to be able to articulate the why. It can't just be like, go and do this. Some athletes will just fucking go and do that. And some of those are the best athletes just because they just put their head down and go. But in like that, in my working environment, if I want to create a environment where my employees feel a sense of ownership of the space, of the business, of their clients, I need them to feel that by also having a say in what we do and what we go about and what decisions we make. And so one of the things I've worked really hard on is being just a vote in the decision-making process. Like, have I vetoed things? Yeah, and overrun some things, sure. But I've also seen the blowback from just ruling with the iron fist and saying it should be done this way. Why? Because I said so. Right. I don't think that's the right way to run a team, an organization, or anything like that. And so my coaches now, they feel a sense of pride because they've helped build and curate what we do and how we do it, because I've opened up that opportunity for them to do so.
Yeah. Do you ever, I mean, it sounds like you've got a pretty well structured thing, and this might, that might be the answer to the question all by itself, but do you ever run into a situation where you get like some groupthink momentum that you realize like, oh, that we've been doing this the wrong way for the last 6 months and we really need to change gears? Like we talked earlier about being really dogmatic about neutral spine or not neutral spine. You know what I mean? Like that's a small example, but have you had things that have come up with your group where you're like, we don't actually think about this. Like we kind of set a path and we've been doing it for a long time, but it might not be the best thing to do.
All the time.
Yeah.
I think that if you look at like an organization or business or whatever, like the businesses that grow the most are the ones that are willing to pivot, raise their hand when they're wrong, and make a change fast. And so there's been many moments. There's been moments early on where we haven't done that, and then some realizations that have come from hanging on to a process or a rule or something, a way of doing for too long. And so now it's at the place where it's like, assume it is. You just have to assume you're never right.
Yeah.
And so if we make those assumptions, then we're always looking at ways we can optimize, improve, and change, and being willing to make those changes. One of the guys in my leadership team, he was my client back in like 2016 and then came on as a coach in like 2019. He's been with me since. It's funny, like he is constantly, he's the type of guy that doesn't like change. Things are the way they are. Why? Because it works this way. Why change it? And so we constantly butt heads in our leadership meetings. And at first I was really frustrated. And then I realized, I think I read this book or took this like type of personality test, like the 5 voices or something, where I realized this guy is, I forget the term for it, but he's the protector of the way things are, and so you need someone to slow the visionary down, or else I'm constantly going to be changing the way in which we're doing things. And that doesn't work either because you have no momentum and you can't even track data at that point because you're constantly shifting gears. And so there needs to be a balance in the approach. We need to be willing to change and optimize and pivot. But at the same time, we can't do it too quickly where we didn't even give this thing or the way in which we're doing things enough time to know if it even worked or not. Because we're pivoting too soon, we're changing the variables too fast. Same goes for training, right? Like you have to give something amount of time, like a different modality or movement, enough time to see what do we get out of that. You can't just be shifting things all the time and changing what shoes you're wearing every other squat session because you're like flats feel good today, but heels feel good this day. You got to like give it some time to see the progression. Same goes with business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's good to have those people just in your own relationship who are, kind of they don't see the world the same way you do. That's part of the reason why we like working together is we have very different outlooks on a lot of stuff. And so usually when we come to a consensus, it's a pretty reasonable approach,
Yeah, and just finding people that are willing to, like, a lot of times, even if I can tell we're going to go to the same area, like if we have an idea, like trying to just play the other side. Like what, not necessarily devil's advocate, but right, like, all right, let's argue it the other way to make sure that we are getting, because sometimes you do get excited, especially in business or an opportunity we think is going to happen. It's like, we better at least look at, like you said, like what is the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
We're walking through open doors, I feel like every week, right? Like we're just trying to, if an opportunity opens, let's keep moving forward. It's very different. This business, if you looked at right now, like what we said our business was going to be when we started this thing, like we're not even in the same market anymore.
Yeah.
Or, we've adjusted, but we've adjusted. And I think it was Max that said it first time, was just failing at full speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's the key. And it's hard. I think, my mind moves a million miles a minute, and it's a flaw in a sense. I think that we constantly, as people, like especially like entrepreneurial type personalities, are constantly chasing the next thing, this shiny object, and so it's easy to get distracted. It's also easy to let the goalpost shift, and so you've never arrived, you never celebrate the win, you're never there because you're constantly already on to the next thing. That's how I operate. So there's some flaws in that. I need to do a better job of being present, celebrating the wins, things that I'm trying to do a better job of that now. But the problem with the running a million miles a minute is like I'll have, like I mentioned, this person who, his name's Sebastian. Like he even if he were to listen to this, he knows, and we're good. Like he's my homie. He was just in my wedding. I got married. Like we're boys. But I wasn't doing a good job of explaining why I'd make a decision or why I thought what I thought, because it was just like I just thought they'd get it too. Like, oh, you guys, or maybe I'd breeze over it too fast. And so taking time to explain, slow down, analyze, have the conversation, I wasn't as good as that as I am now because I practiced it.
Yeah. And that's a hugely important and like empathetic thing to do, right? Because they don't know what you know about it, right?
Yeah.
So like you really, if you're taking the time to answer their objections and get to see what's important to them and, like try to make everything fit together for them, then that, it's good for the relationship and it's good for the decision making, because you get to means test your own decisions and you get to, involve the people around you and make sure that everybody understands what's happening.
Yeah, that's just good for any relationship.
Yeah.
Like this is some general relationship advice.
Yeah. I mean, like being okay with being wrong, I think is a really healthy thing. Knowing when you were wrong. I think about, there was a time during COVID, we did like workout time slots. So people would have to reserve a slot because we were only letting like certain amount of people in the gym at a time. But then I wasn't really there policing that. And so I'd have my guys police it, kind of put it on, delegate, put it on them, not in a good leadership way, kind of like you guys deal with this, I'm out sort of thing. And we kept those time slots for a long time. And my reasoning was I kind of like this data. I like to know the foot traffic. I like to know what's going on. But they'd constantly be like, dude, like people just showing up with, we're having to be the bad guy to like these people. They're always showing up without reserving the slots. Like, what are we supposed to do? We have no power even to, we don't want to be mean and lose them. What do we do? And after months and months and months, I snapped like at my GM, who's also one of my boys. And I was like, dude, just like fucking listen to me, or like something like that. And finally we let go of the time slots, and like more people started training. We had just such a better community vibe. Everything was above board. The relationships healed. Like I was wrong. Like I kept them too long because why? I wanted some KPIs and data, but like I wasn't there to see it in real time on the floor, in, there in the gym at those busier times. So just, being willing to say when you're wrong, being open to it and try other things. I would prefer to be wrong at this point with some things and let someone else have the win. I want my team to bring me ideas because, 6 brains are better than 1 brain. And so if I'm the only idea guy and they're relying on me because, well, whatever Zach says goes and Zach's ideas are always the best, apparently, then they'll never speak up because they know they'll get shut down. So that's something that's helped me a lot too. Yeah,
and just from like an economic point of view, right? There's no way for one person to have all the good ideas. Like it just can't happen. You know what I mean? I can't. It's like a money thing, right? Like if I had all the money, I'm not going to buy 300 million pairs of jeans or whatever. Like the system doesn't work unless like everybody who comes in has their own vision and their own view, and a lot of times they're super super useful and they're things that you'd never think about.
100%. Yeah, and just facilitating those conversations, I think, is really important.
Yeah. So you're trying to grow the Coach Logic. Can we talk a little bit about Coach Logic? Because it's a really cool app, and we're very excited to be on board and offering some supports for people and stuff through it. But can we talk a little bit about Coach Logic? Can you?
100%.
Let me jump in before that, just because it's a funny story. So when we got Zach on, he was on our list because we have had Max on, and so I started watching you guys' stuff, and I was like, man, we really get Zack Bartell on. And then so I was signing up for Coach Logic, which I thought it was from Josh Gibson, was the one that was like, hey, yeah, get on to Coach Logic. It's an awesome app. And then so I go to the Coach Logic website, and it's like the name on the website is Josh Gibson. And I was like, did you just send me to your own fucking app, you asshole? And then he was like, no, it's Max's. And I was like, oh, all right, that's dope. And I was talking to the sales rep, and I was like, I'm used to sales reps, right? Like somebody that really has no idea what the fuck is going on. So I was like, should I keep asking you questions if I don't know what's going on, or? And it was like, yeah, ask me anything you want. My name is Zack Bartell. I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit. It's like, I'm about to email you if you want to come onto our podcast. Like, so I don't even. I think during the sales pitch we set this up. So I don't think that's ever
Yeah.
happened. Like,
Yeah, like so, I've my team, well, I actually have been using True Coach since 2016 when Max showed me it. It was originally called Fitbot. And so over the years, we've tested other apps, Team Builder, Trainerize, Train Heroic, and like True Coach was always just kind of like good enough. And there was nothing out there that was better. And then I started playing around with the idea of building my own, looking into how much that would cost and how much I really don't care about software. I just care about like growth and people, and
right.
I'm more of a people guy. And so when Max hit me up, I want to say in December, asking me about some like sales stuff, he wanted to hire some sales reps, and I just hit him up with like, what are you looking for? Like, tell me about what you're working on. We hop on a call, and I'm like, dude, like, I've been looking for an opportunity like this. I've been wanting to build my own, but I don't really care about the software
Pretty good
development side, and so I was like, let me be part of this. I'll put some money in. I'll work, for free. Like, I don't care. Like, how do I be a part of this? And so came on. And then it's funny, Max and our software developers, another partner, his name's Kush, and both of them were like relieved because they don't know how to sell jack shit. Sorry, Max or Kush. But yeah, ultimately came on, and it's been great because I have a lot of experience, obviously, with coaches and and so is Max, but like with a bigger coaching organization, like an enterprise, running multiple coaches, hundreds and hundreds of clients, and like what the feedback that is necessary to really develop a good app, to get quality feedback from team and stuff like that I deal with these coaches every day. And so it was a really easy marriage. And then from there, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that obviously I have a bias, but Coach Logic, I think, will be the best app. I think it already is pretty much there outside of maybe some like UI type stuff. Like we're still fleshing out design, but as far as like the data tracking side of things, long-term planning tools, and then some of the AI tools that are already there, but really the ones that are coming out and that are in the pipeline, I think will change the way people coach forever. And I think we're going to be the first to do it. And so our goal is, hey, we're the Noah's Ark of AI and coaching, hop on, like we're going. So yeah, ultimately, like our phone app, our client app, it's funny. So you're on the list. I already, right before this, I was creating the launch email. We pushed it to the app store. Now we're just waiting for approval. And then I'm sending out the launch email. Like the client app is happening like in the next 12 hours. So
Okay.
you'll get that. Yeah. And then as far as like so the app side, the coaching side, it's just going to take over. And one of the things too that I really liked was that long-term planner tool. So like my coaches, where I see a lot of client fall off, and whenever I survey clients, things like that, the feedback I always get from clients is they always want to know the why. They want to understand the long-term plan. Like we always want to paint the picture of the road to success. And we've really never had the tools outside of making our own spreadsheets or graphics or whatever to really show that and show the progress. Because again, if we're talking about barbell sports, you're not making PRs every day, but are we increasing tonnage? Are we, moving other accessories that are progressing? Maybe the barbell movement isn't, but other places are, and that means we're making objective progress. But there's never been an app that's like really painted that picture for you really easily. And so when I saw stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God. And then actually it's funny. I don't know if you've seen this tool, but there's now a video recorder on the long-term planner and calendar. Like that was my request because my coaches do program explanation videos every block we drop. So we would do Loom, do the explanation. And so now there's an in-app program, recorder tool and long-term planner recorder that we can show clients that are online what we're working on, why, what the phase of training look like, all that stuff too. So I knew it would solve problems in my own business, and I know like the level my business runs at. And I'm like, I think this app will change the game for lots of coaches. I'm like, I have to be a part of this. The other thing for me, I wanted a new challenge. I want to play in a bigger arena. Obviously software is an infinite scale type of business. But for me, I've always been like, software's always been icky because the vehicle in which most SaaS companies run is stuff that wouldn't juice me, but this aligns. This is coaches. This is people I deal with every day. This will help coaches grow their business, which I'm super passionate about that. So it just was this perfect sort of marriage that I could have never imagined, like coming, on him texting me on my phone and it just like hopping up on my desk. I'm like, man, because I've always felt like too, with gym stuff, I've always felt like my gym has been my entrepreneurial playground where I'm learning the tools and how to run a business for the big kids playground. And I didn't know when that would be or where it was. And now I know that like, oh wow, this is the opportunity I've been preparing for. And all of the things that I've learned in the 8 years of running my business, to seven figures and stuff, I can then take to something that has a higher ceiling of opportunity that juices me. And so it's been really motivating. And ultimately I think it'll help all coaches who hop on will just be able to give their clients so much of a better experience and grow their business because they're able to handle more clients, give them the best experience possible, and it'll give them the tools to even put more time back in their day and market and maybe do some of the things to funnel the business as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic app. It's super easy to use, and my clients have been very, spoke positively about it. But also just like how much we could zoom in together, like them being able to see, and then like the ability to like upload videos on a set, right? Like inside the app has been very helpful. But then also like being able to zoom out together, like being able to show them like, all right, like this is the cycle we're on right here. This is where we're gonna go, without having like in the app showing them, without bogging their brains down of like this is what it's gonna look like. It's been nice. Like it's a very easy way to sell, sell the coaching and stuff. So
why?
It's been the why.
Well, and the other thing, like, have you guys ever used Duolingo to try to learn a language?
Yeah.
Duolingo, I think, out of all apps, has done the best job gamifying something that is super boring, which is learning a language.
Right.
And I've always felt that, look, when it comes to training adherence, if we can gamify training and make a monotonous, boring sport like weightlifting or powerlifting more fun, we're going to do something great. And so what we're trying to do, at least I'm pushing us to do this, and they're all in agreement, is like things like on the app, you'll see sets logged, you'll see tonnage graphs, you'll like in your face telling you you're doing good and you're progressing, will make the client more likely to, one, track their data and actually put in their recorded stuff rather than just checking things off a list. And then two, keep them training because they see measurable progress every single day and it gives them instant feedback and gratification. So for me, it's like we're doing a great thing for coaches, one, but we're also doing a great thing for clients because then they're able to be more motivated to continue to train and record everything because they're getting positive feedback for doing so.
Right. You could even like branch out, like kind of how Peloton has like their communities, or like they do a really good job of, for no other reason, you're going to join this bike ride to try to ride as fast as humanly fucking possible, right? Like, and there's people that'll just be like, oh, it's supposed to be a hill ride, and they just must be mashing the whole fucking trip. So like that definitely works for like a large portion. Like I love that kind of stuff. If you can give me a little thing that's like, oh, plus 5 pounds, you're in the top 500 on Coach Logic this week or something, I'd be like, fuck yeah, baby, come on.
Or even on the team side, like I want to, I always have these ideas, and so our software developer always is like, dude, like I'm trying to build this other stuff first. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I have like feature ideas, and he's like, let me do the AI stuff first, because the AI stuff will honestly be the absolute game changer for programming. So I get it. But one of the things is like team leaderboards. So, when you have a team of, let's say 10, 20, 50 people, what about if there's a leaderboard for how many people actually show up and log their workouts, and
Right.
you see who's been the most consistent. We see this in group class environments all the time in all these different modalities of fitness. Why can't we do it too? So that's this type of stuff we're going to push towards, is measurable progress against your peer, because we're all competitive in some way. And so if we can show that, track that, show that to the people, and then on the team side, as you as the coach, as the team owner, then your clients are motivated to beat their peer in a sport where you can't really measure unless you're in the same weight class, in the same life circumstance. You're never like really measuring. You can't really measure yourself against others in the gym. You can compete and measure, but like if we can create that measurement in a training environment, I do think we see client adherence go up, retention go up, and enjoyment go up.
Yeah, I could even see like after it got big enough, like putting out like a national level, like who, what team is gonna, in the month of February, who's hitting the most workouts, you know what I mean? Like you have all these little pockets of like people like, dude, come on, coaches are out there like 100% this month, little shit that doesn't take you any more work, but you're given, you know what I mean? It's just like a very easy way to
Strava does that.
Yeah. It's what we just talked about. It's what makes a small gym awesome. Cause now there's community where I'm that kind of way. Like if I was at an Anytime Fitness that was like large or like a 24-hour, I'm probably not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
Probably putting the headphones on. But my favorite thing about a weight room is talking, but I probably wouldn't if it was a large thing, or if I was just being online coached. Like, who do you talk to on if you have
Can
an
feel alone, you know,
Right.
with online coaching. So it's funny from a metric standpoint, like on average, we keep our in-person clients for about 2 years. Our online clients stay for about like 14 to 16 months. Why? Well, it's because like they get bored. It's alone, you know, it's a lonely endeavor. We oftentimes lose that client to like the local in-person coach who's usually not as good, but I get it. You know, it's more that community environment. So if we can foster that through our software where they feel like they're a part of the team, you know, that's all over the nation, all of a sudden you increase, like, again, all the metrics I've mentioned. But that is the goal, is being able to give you guys as coaches the platform to facilitate that with the tools necessary to get the job done and do it right.
Yeah, one of the things I struggle with the most as a lifter is when to be passionate and when to be dispassionate. I bring it up a lot on the show. And one of the things I really like about that concept is it gives you the ability as a coach to tune your person into what they're supposed to be passionate about. You know, like, we aren't passionate about singles right now. We're passionate about getting our sets done, and we're passionate about doing our rehab, or we're passionate about doing our volume or whatever, right? And so you can create those leaderboards, and then you could assign them for, you know, what you're supposed to be real excited and enthusiastic about doing. Might keep people a little more engaged and prevent some of that. Like, you know, we've all seen, you know, I did 5x5 for 12 years, and I quit working after the first year, but I kept doing it, you know?
Yeah, there's different variations. Like if you have, you know, even in my gym, if we have 100, you know, we have so many people training. Some people are prepping for meets, some people aren't. But if you can group by the desired outcome, so maybe there's one group that their desired outcome is to add, you know, a certain weight to a lift. Other people, it's to compete at the same meet. All of a sudden, you can start grouping people in that way. I think that all of these factors will add to some of that extrinsic and intrinsic motivation to push forward, and allow them to celebrate the wins on a more of a daily basis, rather than I get wins when I compete, but that's only twice a year. And then therefore I kind of get those blues and get bored with this thing. Those markers of success, I think, are really, really important for long-term growth, adherence, and it'll help with business growth, I think, undoubtedly.
Yeah, the retention, you're just talking about it, like, once you make them as a part of a team, if maybe they might want to leave you as a coach, like the fact that they don't want to leave all their friends that they've now met, like online and stuff like that, that could be a big retention. And one thing for in the high school level, a lot of guys as in students, guys and girls, I have a hard time them getting to the next level. Even some of them are talented enough to then go to teen or like junior, competitions, but end of senior year in their brain is kind of like, that's when I'm done, right? So a lot of people will be like, I'm training for a powerlifting meet and then I'm done, because they didn't really think about like moving on. So I feel like that will help bridge, like, no, you're done with that meet, but you're still part of this community, and we're just going to go move on to another meet. And I know that was one thing that you had suggested, was like, when you're onboarding, like, make sure you show them what happens after their first goal, like show them what their next goal is, so that they don't just think they're going to quit when that first goal comes.
Yeah, it's on us as the coach, I think, to paint the roadmap. I call it like being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to training and goal setting and coaching. And so, like, if we're being proactive and checking in with clients and bringing up their goals and sort of looking at them again and saying, what's changed, what progress have we made, and where are we not making progress, rather than, I think a lot of coaches are reactive. They get the email that's like, hey dude, I'm quitting. Well, when could you have intercepted that? And like, when did that client start feeling the way they feel? And could we have had that conversation 3 months ago, and all of a sudden that client's still a part of your gym or your team because you were proactive about checking in on how they're doing and feeling? So those are all the things that, like, we've been able to do, and we're still working on it. We're getting better at that. But I think a lot of coaches are just reactive. They coach, they go, and then, you know, if they think, okay, yeah, if the client stays, they probably like them. But there's probably a lot of clients on the roster that are kind of like teetering.
Right.
And if something better popped up, they'd probably jump ship if we're not actively trying to have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, we see it a lot with like, if you're not trying to actually make the kids better, there's lots of kids that come in that'll be like, I'm going to weightlift at the Olympics, or like, I'm going to go win nationals. So like, I've been around it for a long time. So it's like, okay, probably not. Right. Like maybe in 15 years you'll be at the strength, but So like if you just did that as like an online coach, sure, you're going to get like a year or two of the people's money, but
Yeah.
you probably should have like broke that down and gave them like not necessarily different goals, but something that they could feel good about. Like, okay, sure, like you're going to win the Olympics, but in the meantime, let's go like hit some smaller goals, or maybe we'll go to a smaller meet or a rookie meet. Like I know some states are real good at rookie meets, and
Yeah.
just try to allow them to have success in a goal that they probably more than likely would never get to. Uh, that might help you keep your client for a little while, but
Yeah, there needs to be a stair step. You know, there needs to be micro goals to the macro goals, and it's on us as coaches to paint the roadmap, and not just wait for the client to tell you, "Hey, I want to do a meet." Oh, okay, cool. Let's do it. You know, we should be pushing
right.
for these things and pushing their own envelope, and showing them, you know, what's possible and creating the plan and communicating that to them.
Yeah. All right. I got one more question that I'd like to, or one more topic I'd like to get into before you
Cool.
go, because we talked about it beforehand. Let's talk about generational fitness, like how things are changing and what the space is, doing for us, and what we could do to steer it, maybe even.
Yeah. Well, I think social media has done wonders for fitness endeavors, and sports alike. And so we see, I don't know if you guys see this in, you guys know, you see this every day, but like, at least in my gym too, I see that the younger generations coming in, getting more into these niche, what used to be really, really niche sports is now growing to more mass adoption. And I think it's like a really cool thing. What's definitely interesting to me, like what I've seen though, with my gym is it's gotten very, I don't know, back in the day, like at least when I used to train, and I'm only 28, so like I'm not old. And so, but even
it
when,
all happened within 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
You're old as shit. No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
in the-
yeah,
in the
yeah,
fitness
my
world
body
of New
feels
York,
like it
you're
is.
right. Yeah.
But so what we're seeing today is like everything needs to be perfect. Like I was talking earlier about my gym having like, so many combo racks and people, it's privileged space. When I was back in my day, like I had to bench on the shitty 24-hour fitness rack with 2 slots. So like if the high one was too high, the low one was too low, but whatever,
Yep.
you had to
The
deal with it.
bench pad was
Nowadays,
8 inches wide. You couldn't get 2 shoulder blades on it.
slippery. You're just like, yeah. So now it's like, it's gotten very, very hyper. I don't know what the term is. Like people expect a certain type of specialization. Like they bring their special carpet to have more grip on the deadlift. They bring their bench, mats put on the bench, even though we have like really nice benches that are really sticky and you can't even use your bench mat in competition anyway. So
Threw
like,
in their own Thompson fat pad. They're like,
yeah, literally.
taking
I mean,
apart, like-
I've seen just some ridiculous stuff, and so I think like we talked earlier about that inverted U curve. You have the caveman to the Jedi to the caveman. I think a lot of these younger folks I see, and I guess I saw this in myself a little bit, where that's like they think that they need to have the most specialized environment, the certain bar, the certain rack to see success, and I think they're focusing on the wrong things. And a lot of that, I think, is due to social media. And so I think it's on us, the older gen, to get on our phones and get on social media and sort of, and paint the roadmap, especially as coaches and guide. But I see this a lot. And I also see like definitely a lot of like, coach hopping. I see in the younger generation as well. They're more likely to jump ship and move on to the next. We had a guy who like, man, he hit like a 9 for 9, younger guy, 19, went 9 for 9, added like 50 kilos to his total in this prep, and then like quit and jumped to another coach. Why? Well, because this guy is like more popular, on IG, or all the cool powerlifters are training with him. And so I think it's just on us to educate. But at the same time, it's definitely changed the sport, quite a bit for sure.
Yeah, I think there's always like a level of buy-in. Like we joke a lot that I've read every study or book that's ever come out on training, and I definitely haven't. Like that's not a real statement, but that's part of my buy-in. Like when I'm into training, I like to read about the stuff. I like to listen to people talk about it. It's really enjoyable for me. But buy-in looks different for everybody, right? So some people's buy-in is getting the fancy mats or the fancy gloves or straps or knee wraps or whatever, right? Like that's part of their buy-in. And I think, you touched on something that's really important there, is that like as important as like the buy-in is and everything, those you making routines is going to be a huge part of your success. You having buy-in is going to be a huge part of your success. You got to channel that so that it's productive. Like
Yeah.
I've known people who have to have like a certain warm up routine and certain music and certain knee sleeves and certain socks and then they go to a meet and they can't perform because
Yeah.
they don't have their whole routine ready. So those things that are part of your buy-in in terms of the actual performance of the exercise should really be things that you can reproduce quickly, you can reproduce easily, you can reproduce without equipment. Like you want to make those routines things that are like that intrinsic, extrinsic, right? You want to make them intrinsic things so that nobody can take them away from you. You can go to the
Hmm.
worst meet in the worst environment of your life, and you can still do all the things you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, like it's funny, I when I started competing, there was lots of actually Metroflex even. So like my first comp at Metroflex, the warm up area was didn't have kilo plates, had pound plates, which was very normal at the time. It had a bench that it wasn't super adjustable, and I was working in with other people to warm up. It was super slippery. But you just made do. I was at other meets where it's like we had to warm up on CrossFit bars with bumper plates, and we had to use rubber bands to keep the plates on because there wasn't enough clips. You just be strong. Like in any environment, if you're training for powerlifting, weightlifting, whatever it is, just be strong. Like you should be able to be strong in any environment at any time. You shouldn't have to do your routine, just to be able to, and maybe that gives you a little bit of an edge. And I think that stuff can be good, but at the same time, if you're not able to recreate that in a competition setting or just in general, we're setting ourselves up for failure, I think, long term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think after your first, your first meet, I guess smaller meets are not as bad, but like your first national meet, like if you think you're slowing the show down, right? Like they're trying to run it as efficiently as possible. There's probably another session right after your session and possibly one at the night. Like they run as fast as humanly possible. So like your routine better be short, and you better like, especially like at the USAPL, sometimes like they run a tight ship. Like
Yeah.
they figured it out. So like some of those times when you're behind, like at nationals, it's like, all right, okay, good job. Like, all right, hold on, let me walk over to the board real quick to see how many people you are. Like, all right, you're 3 out. Get back
Yeah.
up. Like, get back in line. So the routines sometimes, like you said, you got to get it out of your head.
Yeah.
One thing though, like to jump back with social media, as a coach, like this is what I run into a lot of times is either, I think we started the whole thing off with this, was like either it's kids or I do kids, you do more adults and stuff, but just seeing like really strong people or really talented people and
Hmm.
what they've done and being like, I'm going to do that. And then not understanding, or a coach not being able to tell them like either like that is working for them because they're like way beyond where you're at, right? They might need a fourth bar and a cambered bar and transformer bars just to change up their training because like they've kind of maxed out a lot of different things, or it's injury, right? Or they just are really fucking naturally good, and what they're doing is not even the optimal way to do it. It just happens to be that they're fucking way more talented than you. So doing these goofy bullshit exercises just happens to make them one of the strongest or like highest jumpers. Like you can't just look at Instagram and be like, I'm doing that.
Well, and it's one of those things too, is like they didn't see, so no one ever sees the come up, they just see
Yeah.
the results. And I mean, I see this in business too. You see someone at the top and you're like that guy, and you look at what they're doing and it should be done that way. But in sport, whatever it is, it's like, but you didn't see the grind to get there. And so a lot of like what made some of maybe the best lifters the best was not the work they're doing now. It's what they did 5 years ago, 8 years
Right.
ago. What was the base of training they created? What was all the GPP work they did? All these different things. And so we're missing that. And that's like when we talked earlier about like athletes peaking too fast in their careers and like falling off maybe because of injury or whatever. I think it's because athletes aren't building a big enough base. They're going hyper specific. Powerlifting, the big thing now is like really high frequency on movements and like SBD days and super special, like a lot of specialization. And you don't want to be, get hyper specific too early. You want to build that base and do more general work to then build the base to then be able to specialize later in the career when you've peaked a little bit more. And so we're forcing the peaks too early. We're getting less out of it. It's funny. You could even talk about this in like bodybuilding. So like when someone hops on gear too early, All of a sudden to get, then to get further, they need to do more drugs and like do more things. And all of a sudden, it becomes way less healthy. And so there's a bodybuilder I really like, Jared Feather, who is like natural bodybuilder for a really, really long time. He's an RP guy, friends with Dr. Mike, and then he decided to move over to the dark side and but it's a slow progression. And so we can reach further distances by going a little bit slower and pacing ourselves. Oftentimes, I think young folks want to sprint, but that's not sustainable long term. I think we'd be surprised to see how far we can go when we slow down a little bit and find a pace that's sustainable.
Yeah, especially in strength sports. Like if you go look at the top level strongmen, bodybuilders, and powerlifters. Like sure, there are young men that are in the realm, and there's some that are just really freaky humans.
Yeah,
but most of those people that are really successful are grown.
Yeah, 10
right?
years.
So
yeah, even the ones who are younger usually already have 10 years in the weight room, by the time
and they probably had a beard when they were fucking 8. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean a lot of this, as we know, I mean, I always joke with people too, if NFL players decide, if people could make more money in powerlifting than the NFL, the NFL players would go and beat everyone in powerlifting. It's just, it's people, this is a subcategory of, for a lot of real professional athletes, this is just exercising to them. And if we had those freaks in this realm, it would blow the cap off what has been done before. And so ultimately, a lot of people at the top, they are a lot of genetic freaks, but at the same time too, when it comes, those young folks will never understand that if that person who maybe is at the top doing some wacky stuff, now we were to apply some of the less wacky stuff, that person might eke out another 5 or 10% on some movements, but we'll never know because they'll never switch their way of doing things.
Yeah. It's an argument I get a lot. It's they'll say well, Randy Moss didn't work out and he was one of the greatest receivers ever. And it's okay, but what if he did?
Yeah, what if he did,
what
though?
What if he fucking did? That would be
What if DK wasn't eating Skittles all the time and
they'll be
eating McDonald's?
DK eats Skittles.
Yeah.
It's sick. What if he didn't? What if he actually fucking just think what he would be like then? So you're not DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and you also got to understand that when you're like Andrei Milanichev and you've been squatting heavy for 20 years and you've put up 1,000 squats over 1,000 pounds or whatever, your body is going to react a lot different to a squat workout than when you're, your second year in the weight room or whatever, right? The longer that I've been lifting, the more bench press becomes a full body exercise, and I remember when I first started lifting, it would just kill those rotator cuffs and a little bit on the tricep, and I was toast, and now when I do it, I get done and I'm my lower back is cooked, my abs are cooked, my calves are cooked. I'm why are my calves working so hard?
Yeah. You're tapping in, your neural pathways, right? You're tapping into more motor neurons all throughout your body, different muscle groups. You're able to activate more because you've done thousands and thousands of repetitions over, a long period of time. And so we're able to eke more out versus blowing out, our pec because we're relying, too heavily on one area of the body to produce the force. And the only way to build that is through the hours. And so we have to be willing to put in, those hours in those longer term time spans to let our body adapt to be able to handle the loads that we're trying to hit.
Yeah, and those kind of general hours of training are so valuable. When people get so specific, they don't understand how much they're shortchanging themselves.
Yeah.
It's even a thing I'm having to intentionally go back and put in just more general stuff. I got a little bit of plyometric things and a little bit of accessory stuff because, things just don't feel right if you don't do it.
Yeah, put in general shit because guess what? If you're a power lifter or you're a weightlifter, that road's gonna end either because you wanted it to or it wants you to, and you probably should have other shit because you're gonna be this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna be done with powerlifting, so you're gonna be maybe I'll do a fucking lightweight strongman competition.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? You're not going to become uncompetitive, but you better be better at just bench squat and deadlift or just clean and jerk. But yeah.
100%. And I think if people do train more general and they can find enjoyment in some of that more general type of work that maybe is less flashy and fancy, then all of a sudden, if the career is ended, whether it's your choice or not, you still find, again, enjoyment and you find yourself in the gym. That was me. had to stop powerlifting, but I still kept lifting weights because I enjoyed building muscle mass and I enjoyed the feeling of pushing hard. And I wasn't chasing. It took some time to change the mentality for sure, but I wasn't chasing the numbers. I was chasing a feeling, and I was chasing the discipline.
Well, that's really where I feel like it might not be for everybody, but that will fill a void, the coach logic, like being able to do that, because you'll be able to immediately get the same feelings by like, okay, I'm not going to get it with bench, squat, and deadlift. I'm going to get it with all these other things, like, but still 100%. Have the same like motivational, the little dopamine hit. Everybody wants that dopamine hit.
100%.
Coach Logic just said, "Good job" to me.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't pay him to say that. I swear. Coach Logic, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. This is not a paid. This is not a paid
Yeah.
thing. I just love it. It's done very. It's been a very. I mean, I started off and I was just on Google Sheets, and it was fine, but it was a lot more fucking work, like for a lesser product. So
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome.
All right, did we do it? It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
All right. Well,
this is fun, guys. I appreciate you having me on. I love these long form type of conversations where we can really get into some of the nuances and all these different topics. So I've really enjoyed my time. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. And if you're watching, like, comment, subscribe. Helps out the show a ton. We really appreciate it. All right.